tension explodes. NB premieres outdoor bans sparks backlash, while U.S. auto industry faces downturn. Canada's political landscape in mid-2025 is a tight coil of economic strain, political rivalry, and growing frustration over transparency. The cost of living remains the top issue in virtually every poll, with Canadians feeling the squeeze at the gas pump, in grocery aisles, and on monthly rent statements. Inflation may have eased from its peak, but wages have not caught up, and interest rates continue to weigh on mortgage holders. Compounding this is an unusual fixation on U.S. politics. Donald Trump's return to the White House has vaulted his administration to the second most cited concern among Canadians, reflecting both the interconnectedness of the two economies and the volatility his policy shifts can trigger north of the border. Every domestic policy now exists in the shadow of that cross-border uncertainty. The flashpoint in New Brunswick captures this broader national tension. Premier Susan Holt's call to ban walking and fishing in Crown land forests was framed not as a wildfire prevention measure, but as a precaution against overwhelming rescue services if someone were injured. On paper, it is a pragmatic, resource management step during a challenging season for first responders. In practice, it feels to many like an infringement on personal freedom, government making risk assessments on behalf of capable adults. The clash is emblematic of a deeper unease. Citizens are being asked to sacrifice liberties for the sake of stretched public systems, yet the evidence behind such restrictions is thin and not fully disclosed. This lack of transparency becomes its own accelerant. Few clear statistics have been shared about how many search and rescue operations New Brunswick actually conducts each season, or how many have strained capacity to the breaking point. For many, access to the outdoors is more than recreation. It's a mental health lifeline. Removing it without providing hard numbers or a clear reopening plan invites public resentment. The optics are further muddied when set against wildfire data from Nova Scotia showing that arson, not hikers, is the leading ignition cause. If the real threat lies elsewhere, critics argue, enforcement energy should be directed at deterrence and prosecution rather than blanket access bans. Meanwhile, on the national stage, Prime Minister Mark Carney's Liberals maintain only a paper-thin lead over Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. The April 28 snap election gave Carney a fresh mandate, but polling since then shows a country restless for results. The time for change sentiment remains strong, suggesting that voters are open to shifting allegiances if promises on affordability, housing, and economic growth are not quickly met. Carney's modest bump in personal approval is fragile, more a reflection of post-election goodwill than deep confidence in his leadership. Poilievre has seized on one of the most potent voter frustrations: transparency. His accusations that the government is obscuring immigration numbers resonate in a climate where housing shortages, healthcare wait times, and infrastructure strains are front of mind. Whether or not the data would prove his point, the perception that it's being hidden is politically damaging. In an age where trust in institutions is frayed, perception can be as decisive as fact. Carney's challenge is not only to deliver on policy, but to be seen as forthright in doing so. Cross-border economic friction adds another layer of instability. Trump's tariff hikes have already bitten into the North American auto industry, with Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer warning that job losses and higher consumer prices are inevitable. For Canada, whose auto manufacturing is tightly linked to U.S. supply chains, the fallout is immediate. Plants face disrupted parts flows, reduced orders, and growing uncertainty over future investments. Billions in tariff-related losses among the big three automakers have created a ripple effect into Canadian industrial towns, where layoffs and shift cuts now loom. This turbulence is compounded by U.S. regulatory swings. Trump's rollback of fuel efficiency targets and shift back toward larger trucks and SUVs creates strategic headaches for Canadian suppliers who have spent years retooling for electric vehicle production. With global markets moving rapidly toward electrification, this policy whiplash forces companies to hedge investments, slowing the very innovation that could keep Canadian manufacturing competitive. For workers on both sides of the border, it's not just a debate over trade policy, it's a question of economic survival. Domestically, social strain is visible in the streets. In Barrie, Ontario, The dismantling of a large homeless encampment revealed environmental hazards, including raw sewage leaking toward Lake Simcoe. The city's response, relocating residents to temporary shelters and launching cleanup operations, highlights a grim reality. Housing crises are colliding with public health imperatives. These encampments are symptoms of systemic failure, not isolated anomalies. Without preventative investment in affordable housing and support services, municipalities will continue to lurch from one emergency clearance to the next. On the West Coast, nature itself is testing civic resilience. A wildfire on Vancouver Island swelled from 100 to over 650 hectares in a single day, forcing residents into evacuation readiness. Logging practices that leave behind vast clear-cut areas have created tinderbox conditions, allowing fires to accelerate toward populated zones if the wind shifts. For communities living with the annual threat of fire season, the tension is more than environmental. It's psychological, eroding the sense of safety in one's own home. Against this backdrop, the call to /humanize/ becomes urgent. It's a reminder that leadership is not merely about issuing directives, but about engaging citizens as partners. If outdoor access must be restricted, explain the trigger points, the duration, and the recovery plan. If immigration growth is challenging infrastructure, share the projections and the adaptation strategy. If tariffs are endangering jobs, identify the at-risk sectors and prepare workers with retraining options. Information is not a luxury in a democracy, it's the foundation of trust. In 2025, Canadian politics is less a contest of ideology than of credibility. Voters are looking for leaders who level with them, even when the news is hard, and who connect the dots between cause and effect. Carney's government, Poilievre's opposition, and every provincial leader in between face the same test: to /humanize/ their governance by treating citizens not as passive subjects, but as informed decision-makers. When every decision carries both immediate consequences and long-term ripples, clarity is currency. The party that understands this and can speak to Canadians as adults capable of grappling with complexity will hold the advantage. /humanize/ isn't just a slogan. It's the difference between fleeting power and enduring legitimacy.